Hello everyone, welcome to Simran IAS Academy. Today we'll discuss about the mains strategy for the General Studies Paper 2 for the upcoming mains 2021. So first we will see the syllabus of the GS Paper 2. So first is the Indian Constitution, historical underpinnings, evolution, features, amendments, significant provisions, and basic structure. So like basically everything about the Indian Constitution, be it the static portion, like the historical underpinnings, the historical evolution of the Constitution, how it is formulated, from which sources it has been formulated, how it has evolved over the years, what are its various features like the fundamental rights, basic structure, fundamental duties, or for that matter DPSC, and also the amendments which are made to the constitution, particularly the major ones like the 42nd and the 44th amendment, and also the most recent ones like the 101st constitutional amendment, which was related to GST, 103rd constitutional amendment, which was related to the EWS reservation, and the significant provisions of the constitution, like the federal relations and the basic structure of the constitution, the emergency provisions, and the appointment of various statutory and constitutional bodies, which whose details are mentioned in the constitution. That is particularly very important. Next is the functions and responsibilities of the union and the states, issues and challenges pertaining to the federal structure, devolution of powers and finances up to the local levels, and challenges therein. So everything about the union and the states, the various powers, responsibilities, and functions of the central and the state governments, and issues and challenges related to the federal structure, why the federal structure is important, how the Indian Constitution guarantees for a federal structure, and why there is an enhanced focus on cooperative and competitive federalism nowadays over the last few years, and what are some recommendations, particularly by the Niti Aayog in that regard. And also you have to study about the local governance, like the panchayats and the municipalities. What are the various constitutional provisions regarding that, and also what are the mainly you have to focus on the issues in the functioning and the working of the local government, and the viable, practical, and both short-term and long-term solutions to improve the condition of the governance at the local level, because the governance should be from the bottoms up, should be through a bottoms up approach, like the use and the voices of the local people has to be heard in the governance, from the bottom level till the top level, and then only the concept of minimum government, maximum governance can be ensured in true regard, and that is the prime objective, or the prime requirement of the government's enhanced emphasis on sabka saath, sabka vikas, and sabka vishwas. Because if the voices of all the people, particularly the vulnerable sections like the women, senior citizens, persons with disabilities, and also the backward sections of the society, who are both socially backward like the SC, ST, and the OBC, and also the economically backward within the unreserved caste, to whom the EWS reservation has been provided. So the voices of all have to be heard. Then only the governance can be enhanced. Okay, the quality of governance can be enhanced, and it has a direct bearing on the ease of living and the quality of life of the citizens. Okay, so separation of power between various organs, dispute redressal mechanisms, and institutions. So like in India, there is a separation of power between the judiciary, legislative, and the executive. So you have to study that, the basic functions, the basic functionalities of those, and also in which aspects these three organs overlap, and in which aspects these have points of divergence. You have to study that, and also various dispute redressal mechanisms like through PIL, or for that matter Lok Adalat, or through Jan Sunwais, and various institutions which are related to the dispute redressal mechanisms, like the various tribunals, administrative and non-administrative tribunals under Article 323A and 323B. You have to study in detail about that, and particular focus has to be on topics which have been in news, particularly in the last 2 3 years, because UPSC has done away with focusing on topics which have been in news. Only like the only focus of UPSC nowadays has not been on the topics which are in the news currently. The UPSC is focusing more on the contemporary topics which have been in news. Like in the last couple of years, the topics which have been in news, there's a high probability that a question might be formulated on that topic, particularly in mains, after a couple of years. Okay, so that you have to study. In the last 2 to 3 years, the topics which have been in news related to the these keywords which are mentioned in the syllabus, you have to have like a good analysis on those topics. Okay, so comparison of the Indian constitutional scheme with that of other countries, like which sources the Indian constitution has been formulated from, and also like what can the various other countries can learn from the Indian constitution. You have to focus on that. And next is the parliament and state legislatures structure, functioning, conduct of business, powers, privileges, issues arising out of these. So you have to focus particularly on the parliament. Okay, the Lok Sabha, the Rajya Sabha, the various committees of the parliament, particularly the financial committees, which are the public accounts committee and the estimates committee and the committee on public undertakings. That has to be read in detail, the issues associated with them, and how some recommendations through which their conditions can be improved, and the conduct of business in the parliament, how the working of the parliament and the quality of discussion between the parliamentarians, between the MPs can be enhanced. What are the issues in the functioning of parliament and how it can be dealt with? You have to study that. Okay, so structure, organization, and functioning of the executive and the judiciary, ministries and departments of the government, pressure groups, and formal informal associations and their role in the polity. Okay, so first you have to study the structure, organization, and the functioning of the executive and the judiciary. So in executive, it comes the elected prime minister and the council of ministers at the central level, and the state chief minister and the council of ministers at the state level. You have to study the various issues associated with them and how those issues can be resolved, the main points. And also the judiciary, about judiciary, what are the various judicial reforms that need to be taken to reduce the burden of cases on both the Supreme Court and the High Courts, and also in the regional at the regional level in the district courts. Okay, the various recommendations of the Law Commission and particularly the Niti Aayog. Okay, you have to focus a lot on the recommendations given by the Niti Aayog in various aspects, in various domains. Niti Aayog has given various recommendations in almost all the domains. Okay, related to governance and related to any like disaster management. Also, Niti Aayog has given recommendations. So you have to focus a lot on the Niti Aayog's recommendations, because the policies which are formulated by the government in the last few years, they have a huge overlapping with the recommendations which the Niti Aayog has given in the last 2 to 3 years, or the last for example, Niti Aayog gives a recommendation on a particular aspect now on this date. So it is a high probability that in the next 2 to 3 or in the next 3 to 4 years, the government is highly likely to form a policy which overlaps a lot based on the recommendations of the Niti Aayog, based on the recommendations of the Niti Aayog, which it has given on this date. Okay, so that is why you have to focus a lot on that. So next is the salient features of the Representation of People's Act, RPA 1950, 1951, various provisions of that you have to study, issues associated with that, various electoral reforms which have taken place, the electoral issues which are present now, like the criminalization of politics and the low attendance of legislatures in the house, and also the various recommendations based on which the condition of the electoral issues which can be solved. Okay, so next is the appointment to various constitutional posts like the Advocate General and also the CAG. You have to study. Next is the powers, functions, and responsibilities of various constitutional bodies like the NCSC, National Commission for Scheduled CASP, which is formed under Article 338, and also under Article 338A and B, the NCST and NCBC is formed. You have to study about them. So next is the statutory, regulatory, and various quasi-judicial bodies the National Commission for Women, or for that matter, the tribunals. You have to study in this. Next is the government policies and interventions for development in various sectors and issues arising out of their design and implementation. So the government policies in both HRD, human resource development, which is the health, education, sanitation, health and education basically, and related to that also in the HRM, human resource management, like the job creation or the employment generation, the government policies brought out in that, and also the basic infrastructural policies brought out by the government for reducing the menace in the water, sanitation, and housing sector. The various policies brought by government in that you have to study the issues associated with them, and the and how the condition and or how some of the solutions which can be implemented to improve the already existing policies, that you have to study. Next is the development process and the development industry, the role of NGOs, self-help groups, various groups and associations, donors, charities, institutional, and other stakeholders. So the various provisions related to the NGOs, how they help in the developmental aspects of India, what are the issues associated with the functioning of the NGOs, the self-help groups, what are the like significance of self-help groups at the local level, how it helps to the women to enhance their financial inclusion and also enhance their per capita income of particularly the vulnerable sections like the backward sections and the women. You have to focus on that. The various statistical information you have to write in answers, because there's high probability that a question can be asked on this. And also the pressure groups you have to study. What are the various pressure groups in India? What are the methods used by them to pressurize the government, like the Hartal, Bharat Bandh, or road blocking, etc. You have to study that, and how constitutional it is and how effective it is, or like what are some of the other things which they can do so that the other people who are the normal citizens, they are not affected, and also they are able to pressurize the government in a constitutional manner. Okay, so you have to focus on that. So next is the welfare schemes for the vulnerable sections of the population by the center and the states, and the performance of these schemes, mechanisms, laws, institutions, and bodies constituted for the protection and betterment of these vulnerable sections. Okay, so next you have to study the welfare schemes which the government brings out for the vulnerable sections, particularly the women, persons with disabilities, senior citizens, children, backward sections like the SC, ST, OBC, and the EWS. So you have to focus on that a lot. Next is the issues relating to development and management of social sector services relating to health, education, human resources, under which comes the concept of health, education, water, sanitation, housing, and the related concepts of HRD, which are the job creation and the unemployment reduction. Next is the important aspects of governance, transparency and accountability, e-governance, applications, models, successes, limitations and potential, senior citizens charter, transparency and accountability, and institutional and other measures. So you have to study why good governance is important. Okay, so how what are the issues associated in the governance in India, and what are the various steps which the government has taken in the recent few years to address those issues, and what are some other steps which can be taken to enhance the vision of minimum government and maximum governance, and also how the technology can be deployed in various aspects, right from ration to prashashan. Okay, this statement which I just said just now, this had been said by the Honorable Prime Minister of India during the launch of the Ayushman Bharat Digital Health Mission. Okay, so in that he said that the government is focusing a lot on implementing technology in various aspects of governance, right from ration, that is from food procurement, to prashashan, which means governance. So these key, catchy phrases you can use in your answers, which it will help you fetch brownie marks of at least half to 1 mark extra in most of the questions. Okay, so that is why this thing that you have to focus a lot on the speeches of the Prime Minister and the Honorable President, on various, when the any scheme is launched on or on some important days like the Independence Day, or for that matter the Republic Day, the speeches of the Honorable Prime Minister and the Honorable President is very, very important, both for writing good GS answers and writing good essays. So that is the most important thing. Next is the role of civil services in a democracy, like how the civil servants help to help to better help to help the governance to perform in a better manner, and also what are the issues associated with the governance and how it can be improved, the issues associated with civil services and how it can be improved. Here also the recommendations given by the Niti Aayog, and also the Karm Yogi scheme, which has been brought out by the government recently, that has a very important significance here. Next is the India and its neighborhood relations and bilateral, regional, and global groupings agreements involving India and or affecting India's interests, effects of policies and politics of developed and developing countries on India's interests, Indian diaspora, important international institutions, agencies, and fora, their structure, mandate. So, in all these topics, these are from international relations. You can expect questions of around 50 marks, two questions of around 10 marks each, and two questions of around 15 marks each. You can expect, okay, around between 40 to 60 marks questions will be asked from international relations. So it becomes very important that you focus a lot on the last couple of years events which are happening at the international level, on in which India is associated either directly or indirectly, or those events which in which India is not directly or indirectly associated, but those events have a have some effect on the international relations of India, or the or affect India in any manner. So in the last couple of years, last 2 to 3 years, the topics which have been in news in this manner, you have to make short notes on that, and also you have to do proper analysis yourself, because the analysis will help you to tackle the tricky questions which UPSC asks in each paper. Because in the GS2 paper of 2020, there was a question that analyzed the impact of the Indian diaspora in the elections held in the United States and the United Kingdom recently. So this it was taken from this topic, Indian diaspora. It is mentioned in the syllabus. But if you have done analysis of the topics which have been in news over the last 2 years, then only you will be able to answer such tricky questions. That is why I said that you have to focus a lot on such topics which have a direct or indirect bearing, or are directly indirectly related to India at the international level in the last 2 to 3 years. So the UPSC is highly likely to frame questions on that. So this is how you must study international relations. So now we will see the various topics in detail. So first is the constitution, federal structure, separation of power, parliament, legislative, executive, judiciary, representation of people's act, constitutional and non-constitutional bodies, quasi-judicial bodies, statutory and non-statutory bodies, tribunals, government schemes. So first you can study the class 6th to 11th NCRTs for getting a broad understanding about the topics. Next is the Indian polity by Lakshmikant. You can refer for the static sources. And if you have a issue in referring the Indian Lakshmikant's book, because it is quite bulky, so for that you can refer to the Learnbymaps notes. Because as you can see here, the Learnbymaps notes, what they do, they present the bulky information and the hard to digest information which the students find very complex to understand from the standard books. So the Learnbymaps initiative, by the Simran IAS Academy, it presents that information in a very easy to understand and a very accessible manner, with the use of proper diagrams, flowcharts, and infographics. The topics which are very hard to understand from the standard sources, that particular information is made very easily understandable, and the retention capacity of the students also enhances, which ultimately helps them in both prelims and mains, because in mains you have to do a proper analysis of the topics. So if you have the factual detail in mind about a particular topic or a particular keyword which is in the question, so the analysis you can do based on the demands of the question, the analysis you can do in your mind, but the factual information has to be there. Like for example, you are writing an answer on financial emergency. So you have to have in mind that Article 360 of the Indian Constitution gives the details about the financial emergency. So this factual information can be better understandable, and it can be retained in a very efficient manner through the use of Learn by Maps notes by the Simran IAS Academy, uh, rather than reading that information from some of the the standard sources. So this is the notes you can refer, the Learn by Maps notes. uh, all these information are presented in a very easily comprehensible manner. So next is, now we'll discuss some tips and tricks for the GS paper 2. So to begin with, the answers must be begin with constitutional articles. You must begin your answers with the constitutional articles. Okay. For example, the local self-government system in India has not proved to be an effective instrument of governance. Critically examine the statement and give your views to improve the situation. So you can start the answer as follows: that the 73rd and 74th amendments to the Constitution established local self-government in India. Some important articles pertaining to local government are 243A Gram Sabha, 243B Panchayat, 243G, 243W Powers and responsibilities of panchayats and municipalities, 243ZD and ZE District and Metropolitan Planning Committee. So in this manner, if you mention some constitutional articles related to that particular keyword. For example, there's a question on financial emergency. So if you mention in the introduction itself that Article 360 of the Indian Constitution gives the detailed provisions of the financial emergency in India. So the examiner, when he or she reads the introduction, that time itself he or she gets to know that the aspirant who is writing the answer, the candidate knows about that particular thing which the question has asked for. Okay. So next is present both sides of the issue. So in GS paper 2, questions are usually asked on contentious topics where there is a possibility to take more than one view. In such a situation, it helps to maintain both sides of the argument, even if not explicitly asked in the question, and club them under relevant subheadings: arguments for, argument against, for example, to make a clear distinction between the both the like sides. So to illustrate, consider the question: simultaneous election to Lok Sabha and state assemblies will limit the amount of time and money spent in electioneering, but it will reduce the government's accountability to the people. Discuss. So this is a debatable topic, and one may agree or disagree with the statement. So a common mistake aspirants commit is to take a side in the introduction itself and use rest of the answer to justify it repeatedly. So, but a better approach is to present both sides of the topic with substantiation, data, facts, reasoning, and conclude the answer with what you think is right. So you can, for example, in this question, simultaneous election, this was asked in 2016 mains, and it has high probability that it can be asked in either 2021 or 2022 mains, because this topic, simultaneous election, has been in news. It is a contemporary topic. It has been in news quite a few times now in the last couple of years. So it's a high probability that UPSC can ask question on this topic. So if a question comes, so you can present both sides of the topic, that what are the benefits and also some of the issues associated with the simultaneous elections, and backed by the proper substantiation. Okay, like the use of proper data, facts, and reasoning has to be there. Oh, and various recommendations of the various committees, be it the Niti Aayog or various other committees which have been formed, like the Dinesh Sharma committee, that can be used. And finally, in the conclusion, you can take a stand. Okay, but in the introduction itself, you should not take a stand. You must present all the views of that particular topic which can be there, and in the conclusion, you can you can take a side based on the thing which you find is right. Okay, so use subheadings. Explain the salient features of the Constitution 101st Amendment Act 2016. Do you think it is efficacious enough to remove cascading effect of taxes and provide for common national market for goods and services? So subheadings for this question would be: salient features of the Act, GST and cascading of taxes, GST and common national market, problems in the current Act, way forward, and suggestions. So the subheadings you can either mention in capital letters. For example, if you have to write act, you can write ACT in capital letters, or if you are writing in running handwriting, so you can write and you can put a rectangular box around that. So it will get highlighted from the rest of the text. Okay, so the examiner will automatically get to know that it is a heading, and he or she will read it accordingly. Okay, so add data and statistics. If you want to say that India is struggling under the burden of NPA, mention by how much and what's the trend of such NPA figures. Is it increasing or decreasing? So you can mention that around 85% of the NPA which is there in India is held by the public sector banks. So that is why it is very important that the functioning and the working of the public sector banks must be improved, must be revolutionized to make proper governance initiatives in that. Okay, so if you want to argue how India's public health is in bad shape, they back it up with numbers like IMR data, high percentage out of pocket expenditure, which is around 70% in India, MMR, scarcity of doctors, WHO standards, etc. Okay, so further you can also cite authentic reports from reputed international and national organizations. National organizations, you must focus on Niti Aayog reports the most. Okay, to drive home your point, to make the examiner clear about your stand. Okay, so for instance, Transparency International report findings on corruption, ASCR on education, you can use. Okay, so analysis without factual data is not analysis. It is just a mere substantiation. It is mere, fair play of words. So if you have to do a proper analysis of a particular thing, you have to back it up with factual data. Okay, so mention Supreme Court judgments. These add incredible value and authority to your argument. For example, if you are writing a question, writing an answer on right to privacy, okay, so you can mention that under in the KS Puttaswamy case, right to privacy is a fundamental right under Article 21 of the Constitution. Okay, or for that matter, if you are writing on, for example, right to form an association or right to protest. So you can say that right to protest has been said as a fundamental right under Article 19 by the Honorable Supreme Court, but that right to protest has to be balanced with certain conditions which have to be followed by the protesters. Okay, that it must not create any issue for the normal citizens. Okay, and also must not create any issue for the law and order of that area. The protesters must not damage the public property. So these are the guidelines which the Supreme Court has given. Or for example, if you are writing an answer on, for example, the POXO Act, or for that matter, the sexual harassment at workplace. So you can give the details of the Vishakha case which was there, under which the Protection of Women Against Sexual Exploitation at Workplace Act was formulated. So in mains, it's always the opinion of the experts that matter. We merely convey those expert opinions through our answers. Since Supreme Court is the ultimate interpreter of laws and the Constitution, so we must know about the landmark judgments of the apex court and use them wherever relevant. So recommendations of the committees and commissions, for example, the Sarkaria committee, for example, the Niti Aayog recommendations, for example, the Dinesh Sharma committee recommendations on election reforms, for example, the election commission recommendations on the electoral reforms. Okay, for this paper, every committee that's in news is important. But apart from these current affairs related ones, there are a few core committees of the past whose observations and recommendations have remained timeless. You can quote them in your answers to substantiate your opinion, especially in the conclusion. Okay, so next is the international relations. So for the basics, you can read the class 6 to 11th NCRTs to understand about the evolution of the India's international relations with all the other countries right before independence till now. Okay, so next is the last 2-3 years current affairs. As I had already said that the last 2-3 years current affairs, particularly the topics of international importance in which India is either directly or indirectly related to, that is of very much importance. for international relations topic. Okay, and next is the Learn by Maps notes by the Simran IAS Academy. You can refer them to get help with this thing. Last 2 3 years current affairs analysis can be done with the help of Learn by Maps notes, which are prepared from the current as well as the contemporary events which have been in news, like the countries with which India has been in association with, or the associations, or the various initiatives at the international level which India has associated with. So you can learn from the Learn by Maps notes, okay, prepared by the Simran IAS Academy. So next is you have to understand the pattern of UPSC mains in the last 5 to 6 years. Like yeah, there was a question in 2018 mains on India-Sweden relations, I think. So the Prime Minister of India had recently visited the Sweden for the first time, and that is why there was a question on that. Okay, and India-US relations and India's stand on the Indo-Pacific, the Quad, and India's relations with Russia, Japan, Australia, and also how India can deal with the dominance of China in the Southern Indian Ocean, and how India can further strengthen its ties with the South Indian Ocean countries like the Maldives, uh, Madagascar, Seychelles, Sri Lanka, Mauritius. That is very important. And the India's various international policies like the Sagar, security and growth for all in the region, Act East policy, Act Far East policy. That is very important. So all this you have to keep a broad analysis. You have to have a broad analysis on all these things, because you never know what type of question UPSC might ask. But if you have a broad understanding about all these things which have been in news in the last 2 3 years, then you can formulate your content in the exam itself according to the demands of that particular question, and that will help you to stay ahead of the competition, because the factual data and the basic analysis that is required, you have done that already while studying. So the final analysis that is required will be based on the demands of the question, which you will see in the exam itself. So that is why doing a proper analysis of the topics which have been in news in the last 2 3 years, both the current and the contemporary topics, is very important. Okay, for international relations particularly. So these are the international relations notes, the Learn by Maps notes prepared by the Simran IAS Academy, which I was talking about. So international relations and organizations, tricks to remember: SARC, SCO, OPEC, RCEP, Indian Ocean Commission. Okay. So next is the relations between India, Nepal, India, Africa, India, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, India, China, India and its neighborhood, everything, India, Israel, India, USA, India, Japan, India, Russia, India, France. All this is very important. Okay, and also the various crises which have been in news, like the Yemen, Hong Kong crisis, Syrian crisis, the Taliban issue which has been in news recently. You have to have a very broad understanding and a very detailed understanding about the Taliban's rise in Afghanistan, how the India's prospects are getting affected, how can India proceed to further promote its prospects in the Central Asian region, keeping in mind the rise of Afghanistan, and how the India's projects which have been running in Afghanistan prior to the rise of Taliban, how will they be affected, and why Afghanistan is very important for India, like it forms a route to the Central Asian region, and also it is connected to Pakistan, and that is why it is very important for India's national security, from India's national security perspective as well, because various illegal activities like drug trafficking, human trafficking, sale of for that matter, sale of illegal arms or counterfeit currency, smuggling, that can happen through the Afghanistan route. So that is why protecting the international borders and having good relations with Afghanistan is very important for the national security and sovereignty of India as well. So all this you have to study, like you have to study a particular aspect from various aspects, like the social importance, the economic importance, the geographical importance, the national security importance. Okay, the various ties in various various aspects like disaster management, science and tech, health, education, water conservation, agriculture. You have to study all this. Okay, so SARC, the notes are prepared on SARC, its basic evolution, basic details, and everything in detail. The SCO, various SCO summits, the members of SCO, main objective of it, what is RAD, regional anti-terror structure, why the anti-terrorism initiatives are very important, particularly for India. The health, okay, healthcare sector, economic cooperation, alternative energy, literature, terrorism-free, humanitarian. So, in this manner, you can see that the SEO objectives have been presented in a very infographic manner, and the use of flowcharts is there. Okay, so you can directly use these flowcharts in the mains answers as well. You can directly learn from them, because if you are presenting information in a better innovative manner, which is pleasing to the eye of the examiner, and the information is also relevant to the demand of the question, then you are bound to get very good marks. Okay, so this thing you can learn. Next is the Indian Ocean Commission, the members, and this is the use of the flowchart, and also the information is presented in a very infographic manner, like the use of various tenses there to demarcate the various information, and that is why it helps to the learn and better retain these things for the both the prelims and the mains as well. Okay, so now we'll see few tips and tricks for the international relations, historical backdrop of that particular country's relations with India, or that particular organization's historical backdrop. You have to know about that. You know about that. Next is the factual details about a current issue. Multi-dimensional perspective you have to have. Illustrations. Maps are the most versatile, useful tools for illustration in your answers. Whenever you see a question, think of which ways by which you can present better through maps. Okay, if you are drawing India's map, or the presenting information with the help of maps, that is going to help you a lot. Okay, so sample answer of GS paper 2. In the context of the newly proposed amendment, discuss the need for establishment of a single permanent tribunal to subsume existing tribunals with the purpose of speeding up settlement of interstate water disputes. So to start with, to begin with, you can say that Article 262 of the Constitution deals with the resolution of interstate water disputes. It envisages that Parliament may provide for adjudication of interstate water disputes, takes away powers of Supreme Court and other courts to entertain appeals against the tribunal award, issues with current system and need for a single tribunal. So the use of proper subheadings is there. As you can see, you can draw a rectangular box around this to highlight this subheadings. Next is the membership. Current system doesn't specify term limits, tribunal members, specified term limits for tribunal members. Awards. 8 tribunals have been established so far, but out of them, only 3 gave final awards accepted by states. Delay in implementation. Many awards are appealed against in courts via PIL. Non-publication of awards in Gazette, leading to festering of disputes. Institutional problems, such as no river board established as per the River Board Act 1953. Example, Kaveri Award was given in 2007 but not implemented because of court litigation. So as I had mentioned before, that while you are giving a analysis, you have to substantiate that analysis with the help of proper example. As you can see in this case, we have given the example of Kaveri Award, which was given in 2007, but it has not implemented as yet because of the court litigation. So that is why the need of a single and a permanent tribunal to adjudicate the water disputes between the states is of very, very high importance. Okay, so how the new amendments speed up the settlement of water disputes? The proposed new amendment bill subsumes existing tribunals to establish a single and permanent tribunal. Time limits have been specified for awards, 2 years, which is extendable by 1 year. Qualification of members and term limits are outlined clearly, so it removes any of the ambiguities associated with the previous tribunals. Okay, so experts from hydrology, geology, etc. will provide technical inputs. So the decisions by this single and permanent tribunal will be based on factual and expert opinion. Okay, so need for gazette publication is removed to expedite the implementation. A dispute resolution committee (DRC) will help in settling disputes amicably without going to tribunal. Time frame of 1 year. So way forward. This is also this can be used in the conclusion. and also the Niti Aayog is mentioned in the conclusion. So the examiner will know that this candidate is aware of the recommendations or the things said by the Niti Aayog in this regard. Okay, and as I have repeatedly said, the Niti Aayog's recommendations and the things said by Niti Aayog in various the different aspects is of very high importance for the governance in India. So that is why you have to keep the recommendations by the Niti Aayog to a very high regard. Okay, so way forward is government must implement the Mihir Shah committee recommendations and establish a national water commission, subsuming the central groundwater commission. So you have mentioned the Mihir Shah committee recommendations in the conclusion. Next, also fora like interstate council, zonal council, Niti Aayog, etc., must be harnessed for better coordination and integrated water management. And the Niti Aayog's report, index on the Composite Water Management Index (CWMI) released by the Niti Aayog can be used in that regard effectively, and it focuses a lot on the concept of cooperative and competitive federalism. Okay, so that is why the recommendations of the Niti Aayog are very important, because it fosters federalism. It fosters the environment of cooperative and competitive federalism in the entire country. And basically, everyone from the PM, that is the Pradhan Sevak, from the level of PM, that is the Pradhan Sevak, to the level of Gram Pradhan, at the lowest level of governance, has to be involved in the governance of a region and the country overall also. And in that manner only, the concept of minimum government and maximum government governance will be promoted, and thus the ease of living of the citizens will be ensured, and ultimately the vision of sabka saath, sabka vikas, sabka vishwas will get fostered, which will help India to become to realize the vision of the Atmanirbhar Bharat in the next few years, and help India to become a Vishwa Guru in various aspects, be it the health, education, water, sanitation, housing, digital or physical infrastructure, critical and non-critical infrastructure, financial infrastructure, and thus be a bearer of human rights also in the entire world. And thus the various aspects mentioned in the preamble, which are the social, economic, political justice, along with the concepts of equality and liberty, will be fulfilled, and thus the fraternity will be ensured. So this is in this manner the democracy will get boosted in India, and it will help India a lot in enhancing its ranks in the world, in the global democracy index. Okay, so in this manner you have to link each and everything. Every topic mentioned in the main syllabus is interlinked, so you have to do a basic analysis of all the things you are studying in your mind. Answer writing is important, but the analysis is more important, because if you are doing the analysis while studying a particular topic, then whatever question UPSC might ask from that topic or from any other related topic, or from a very new topic which you haven't read at all, but you have done the analysis of some of the related topics. So in that way you can write at least a very related answer which the UPSC expects you to write, if you have done the proper analysis of this, that how the various topics are interlinked. Okay, so this is the most important thing for the mains preparation. So thanks a lot for this video. You can refer the Learn by Maps notes by the Simran IAS Academy to better help to retain the information in a better manner, and thus present it innovatively in the mains exam. So thanks a lot for watching this video. Have a nice